Well, there was a pretty good amount of smoke coming from the car. This was probably at risk of catching fire.
What's up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Now, unfortunately today, we ran into a major issue with the Genesis Coupe 3.8 Turbo.
And it is no longer turbocharged.
So as you guys saw from the last video on this car, we upgraded the fuel feed line, and in the process, we found a major issue that was really limiting this car on how much boost we could support with the fueling capabilities. And since fixing that, the car was running phenomenal, having a blast, seeing how much more boost we could turn up and make with the fixes that we did to the car. But unfortunately, I took the car out the other night to go fill up with fuel. And when I got to the gas station, I noticed some smoke coming from the front of the car. And it was actually funny because at the gas station was a fire truck and a work truck with a bunch of firefighters standing around it. And I pulled up and smoke's coming out the car, and they were looking at me all like, wow, this will be the shortest call that we get for fire. But luckily, the car did not catch fire, but we really could have if we weren't careful. So filled the car up with fuel, drove the car home, and got here, decided to go ahead and pull the front bumper off real quick and the headlight so I could see, because the smoke was coming from this general vicinity. And I was pretty sure I knew what the problem was because I've had smoke come from right around where the turbo is before. On my previous turbo, when I bought the car, it still had the original oil drain fitting with the paper gasket, and it turns out that that gasket was leaking oil and causing it to smoke. So on my previous turbo, I actually upgraded to the Motion Raceworks oil drain fitting for -10AN drain line that has a O-ringed seal instead of a paper gasket, and that solved the smoking issue on that car. But when I got my new turbo, once again, it had a normal drain fitting with a paper gasket. I didn't have the drain fitting with the O-ring for that car. It does, or for that turbo, it does have a different style oil drain fitting than the one on my On3 Performance turbo. But I was pretty sure I knew that it was coming from the oil drain. When I first put the turbo in, there was some smoke, but I figured that that was just the machining oil burning off. As time went on and the smoke, didn't go away, then I started to think, okay, maybe it's something with the oil drain system, but it wasn't really anything bad until the other night when I went to go get fuel. There was a pretty good amount of smoke coming from the car. So when I got home and pulled the bumper and headlight off, I was able to see that it seemed like the smoke was coming from the oil drain line. Wasn't the most clear, even with this bore scope that I used. So I decided to pull the turbo blanket off, and upon looking inside of here, you could really tell that this was probably at risk of catching fire with how the turbo blanket was soaking up oil leaking from that line. So I was pretty sure that that's what the problem was, that oil was leaking onto the turbo blanket, which is wrapped around the hot side of the turbo, causing that smoke with the oil. So I was like, okay, let me just pull the turbo blanket off, take the car out, and see if I could actually see oil leaking out, because there was no signs of oil on the chassis here underneath where the turbo sits. But then, upon further inspection, I noticed that we had an issue with our V-band to T4 adapter. So the turbo sits in the car kind of like so, and when I was inspecting all around here, I noticed that we actually had a hairline crack along this weld here for the V-band to T4 adapter. And at that point I was like, okay, we're gonna go ahead, pull the turbo out and get that fixed, because there actually was some soot buildup here on this coolant pipe from right above where that hairline crack was. So there was some exhaust exiting, building up soot here. It's also right below the valve cover, which is plastic, not really designed to have exhaust, pointed at it. So went ahead, surprisingly, with the car still hot and on the ground, was able to pull the turbo out,
and we did go ahead and pull this adapter off, and we took it to a local welder that welded up my V-band collector for my second wastegate for me, and he was able to re-weld this whole bead here and the one on the other side just to be safe. It was actually kind of a blessing in disguise, because in the process of having this out, we were able to sort of machine down the interior of this. They've got this T4 flange here that welds to this box section, but on the inside, the T4 flange is actually less wide of an orifice than the exit could be for this box section. So I was able to machine that smooth. So now as the exhaust flows and gets diverted to the turbo, there is a smooth transition to the outlet of the T4 orifice, rather than there being a lip around the inside that's going to create turbulence in the flow. So that was good. And I did order a replacement oil drain fitting. Here you can see the one that came with the turbo with that paper gasket just disintegrated into it. I did order one, then the GTX style with the O-ring rather than the paper gasket. So that should be in a couple of days. And it wasn't clear to me whether it was just the fitting or also the AN fitting here that mounts to it on the turbo. I did order a replacement -10 90-degree AN fitting, but I did not realize this is a PTFE line and not just a normal rubber lined AN hose. So the wrong one came in. I don't think there's any issues with this. So I'm gonna run it for now, and if there is, then I'll get the right fitting in. It's kind of difficult with connecting that, because normally you would put the drain fitting onto the turbo, and then you would connect the line to the drain fitting. With how this hooks up and the access that you've got here on the bottom side of the turbo with the line installed, you can't get to both of those bolts. So I actually have to install the drain fitting onto the AN line, and then install the line and drain fitting onto the turbo, kind of swivel the line out of the way, and then I can get to both bolts and then swivel it back. Otherwise, I would not be able to get a wrench onto the line to tighten it. Maybe if I rotated the turbine housing around, it would be easier. I don't really want to mess with that if I don't have to, so we're going to try that out once the new drain fitting comes in, and hopefully that fixes our leaking oil issues. Might need to get a replacement turbo blanket, because this one's definitely now seen better days with the amount of oil soaked into it. So that might be another upgrade. It also kind of ripped in the process of me taking it off, which isn't great. But we'll leave the car like this for now until we get that new fitting in, and hopefully it goes in smoothly. Normally I would have dropped the exhaust piping below the car to get the turbo out. Hopefully that doesn't come to bite me in the future with trying to get it back in. But everything seemed to go pretty smoothly. It's a little bit more difficult with this turbo being oil and water cooled versus my previous one, but that's all right. But in the meantime, we were able to get something done on the yellow Genesis, which I had been wanting to do for a while now. So as I previously mentioned in another video, we did relocate the battery to the trunk on this car. So that was a good weight movement to the rear from the front. But in doing that now, if I want to jump start this car, I have to do it from the trunk rather than normally up here with the battery. So what I installed was a remote battery terminal kit. So now I've got a positive and negative directly from the jumpers that go back to the battery in the rear, right here mounted generally where the battery was. And that allows me to jump start the car from up in the front or the rear, but also makes it much easier if I need to wire anything up here in the front or the engine bay, and I need 12 volt from the battery. Now I've got a point there to pick it up from. So that's a pretty sweet deal there. As you can see, I've got my Tim Herber small battery kit with the relocation for the fuse box. I did go ahead and officially remove my two-step box, just because I figured now that I have the secondary cats in the car, I'm definitely not going to be using that unless I just want to create a second pair of test pipes and blow those cats out. So officially removed that, was able to clean up a lot of the wiring over here. Now I've got battery terminals up here, so that's all sweet there. Didn't take too long, wasn't too difficult to complete that. But that's where we're at right now. The car is torn apart, shop's a mess, waiting on parts, and hopefully this fixes the smoking issue and the car is then ready to get retuned. Well guys, I'm back at it, and I was kind of hoping to return and just everything put back together, but obviously that's not how it goes. Gone all week driving around a Chevy Equinox for work, so it's nice to be back to the gens. But here's that old fitting. The new one has arrived. So there you can see it's got an O-ring for the seal rather than that paper gasket. So we'll get ready to install that. I did go ahead and pick up a new turbo blanket as well. So same as the one that I had before, just not soaked in oil. So that's nice. I'll keep the other one as a backup in case I need it, but I don't think I'll have any issues. So we got that ready. Now we just need to get the oil drain fitting onto the turbo. I'm gonna test it first, see if I can do the fitting and then the line. I don't think it's gonna work because it hasn't previously, but we'll give it a shot. And then once that's all ready, we'll throw the turbo back in the car. We'll have to hook up the oil drain line to the upper oil pan from the side of the car and then start connecting everything up. Okay guys, so this is with the drain fitting already on, trying to put this line on, but once you get to the point where you need to tighten it, you can't get a wrench down there. You're blocked in every way. So the only way to make this work would be to remove the turbine housing, and then I could probably tighten it with the fitting already installed. I really don't want to have to remove this and then try to caulk it back at how it's supposed to be and be off and on with it. So I think I'm just going to do what I have been doing, install the fitting onto the line, and then you can swivel the line this way to tighten up the two bolts for the fitting and then swivel it back. So let's go ahead and get that done. Well guys, I got the drain flange on, got the drain line on. I actually went ahead and threw the turbo blanket on and got it between the drain line and the turbine housing, which I think should help out a lot. Obviously, that's a lot of heat right there. You don't want that just pouring into that AN fitting. You can always see the discoloration where it used to be black, but the heat is just taking that anodization off of it. So I think this is ready to go ahead and throw in the car, and hopefully it's not too difficult with the turbo blanket already installed. Well boys, she's in. Definitely went pretty dang smooth for the most part with getting these two V-bands connected up for the turbo connection. So that was nice. That was better than I was expecting. But as I was expecting, the coolant line connections and oil connections were much more difficult to connect up with the turbo blanket already installed, but we were able to get it done. I went ahead and started the car to check for any leaks because I wasn't super confident that these lines were tight. No leaks, which is great, but I forgot to connect the oil drain to the upper oil pan, so I did leak some oil onto the ground. No big deal, cleaned that up. Now the car is ready to be put back together. We'll throw the catch cans in, the intercooler piping, the turbo intake, and that's mostly it. And hopefully when we get it all together and start it up again, there are no leaks, there's no smoke, and this thing is good to go. Well guys, got the car back together. Went together pretty smoothly. No major issues or hiccups. Touched up a few spots with the gold heat reflective tape. Got everything run and laid down nice and clean. So hopefully this smoking issue is resolved. Definitely could have turned out to be a bad situation if it had gone undetected, but I think with the O-ringed old drain fitting, that should solve all the issues there. And I think also the way we've got the turbo blanket separating the turbine housing from the oil drain line should help to divert a lot of heat away from that line. So I'm not gonna take the car out right this moment because it's 104 in here, so it's probably good 91, 92 degrees outside. But once it cools down a bit, I will take the car out, do a little bit of rip in with the car, and make sure I get it nice and hot, check and see if there's any signs of smoke. And hopefully there's not, and I will be good to go. But that's pretty much gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing me kind of work through this issue and pull the turbo off for, I don't know how many times I've pulled the turbo off this car before at this point, but hopefully it's here to stay for a while, and looking forward to getting this car retuned now that we've got the fueling issues fixed. And I'll take care and have a great day.